Alrighty, we are here. Okay. And yes, we are live on YouTube at the moment. And okay. So, welcome to class when buckles turn to shackles, maintaining emotional boundaries in non-marital relationship. My name is Precious Nduku Pascal, and I'm so excited to have you in class. And I hope that today you will learn a lot of things that will shape your mind and your thought process. So let's start with the concept of relationships. The concept of relationship is something that have been misunderstood, has been confused to mean a certain kind of thing, is being abused, overused, and possibly linked to just romantic relationship. But that is not the whole, that's not the whole makeup of what a relationship is. So as human beings, we are designed to be social in nature, right? We are designed to interact. We are designed to mix up with other people, mingle. Simply put, you can't do life alone. You can't do life alone. The concept of relationship is something that predates man. It predates man. It started with God. So you see that even in God, there is a relationship. The relationship of Father, Son, and Spirit. It's a tripartite relationship. That's why it's called a Trinity. So three people or three entities relating together, and you see that communication between them. So the concept of relationship is simply connection between two or more people, whether it's negative or it's positive. So in life, as human beings, you will experience at least one kind of relationship in your lifetime. You would experience at least one kind of relationship in your lifetime. And that brings us to, the certain kind of relationships that we have. The first one or the foremost one would be a family relationship. Everybody comes from a family. Even if you do not know who your family particularly is at the moment, but every person comes from a home. Then there is the work relationship. There is friendship. So family relationship can include relationship with, it could be marriage, it could be parent-child relationship, it could be sibling to sibling relationship, and all of that. Then there is work relationship, where you have people that you are in the same space, social space with, working with. There is the acquaintances, your neighbors, someone you used to know from somewhere, someone you met at the shop. Then there is, courtship, when two people are preparing themselves to get married. That's courtship. These are sort of the major kinds of relationship that we have. Then there are other kinds of relationship. Mentorship. That's also a relationship where one person is coaching the other person. There is, then there are relationships that are neither here nor there. And those kind of relationship, many a times we call them situationships because they are undefined. You can't really say, okay, this is what this relationship is about. So when a relationship becomes complicated, when a relationship does not have a definite reason or direction where it's going, it's usually termed as a situationship. And it can be very delicate because a relationship that has no direction can end up in destruction. A relationship that has no direction can end up in destruction. Now, I want you to know that every relationship is a ship potentially taking you to an unforeseeable destination. Every relationship is a ship potentially carrying you to an unforeseeable destination. So, because as human beings, we are oblivious of tomorrow, the future remains unknown to us. We can only hope and pray, but we cannot tell what will happen the next day, the next minute, the next month, the next year. So when you are in a relationship, it is difficult to tell, any kind of relationship for that matter. When you are in any kind of relationship, it is difficult to tell where this relationship is going, right? Even in marriage, which potentially is established to be a lifelong relationship, we find that today marriages too can hit the rocks and go in the wrong direction. So every relationship is a ship potentially carrying you to an unknown destination. And that being the case, it is therefore important that your relationships should be managed with a high degree of consciousness, delibecy, and purpose. Your relationships should be managed with a high degree of consciousness, delibecy, and purpose. There has to be some intentionality to it. There has to be a sense of direction. Your relationship should serve a purpose. If you're interacting with somebody, there should be a reason. It should yield something. There should be a sort of a benefit, right? So, and if you are in a relationship and you are not getting any benefits, I'm not saying in a way to take advantage of the person, but it is not contributing positively to you, then there is a problem. Then that relationship is a waste of your time. It's a waste of your effort. It's a waste of your existence, to be honest. It's a waste of your time. And time is precious because time is life. So every relationship that does not have a meaningful contribution to your life is a waste of your time. And we've already established that we don't do life alone. So you need relationships, right? And then in our existence as human beings, we know that there are essentially two genders, two categories of people in the world: the male and the female, two species, right? And nature demands and requires that we interact with these two categories of people. These two species, nature demands that you interact with a man, you interact with a woman. However, God has established it in such a way that a relationship with a man would serve certain purpose, and a relationship with a woman would serve certain purpose, per time, per season. Now, let's talk about the concept of friendships, male-female friendships, right? Male-female friendships, knowing that you're going to be interacting with man, you're going to be interacting with a woman. And, there is this question that always comes up when we talk about friendship between a man and a woman. It's very common. And that question is it possible for a man and a woman to be best friends? Is it possible? That's a question. And some people say, oh, yes, it's possible. Yes, it's doable. A man can be your best friend as a woman can be your best friend as a man. There is no harm in it, and all of that. Well, let's dive a little bit deeper. So, the nature and degree of friendship between a man and a woman will always be influenced by their gender differences. And what do I mean? The way that a woman will relate with her fellow woman, the way that you as a woman will relate to your fellow woman, will never be the same way that a man, that you would relate with a man. So at no point in time will you ever relate with a man the same way you will relate with a woman. The reason, because of the differences in gender, it's going to play a role. The concept of sexuality is going to bring about a sort of tension, right? Tension that, causes some sort of friction, some sort of imbalance. So when a woman when a young girl starts to grow up, starts to develop, starts to mature, starts to, have body changes, certain things begin to happen. And those things are resultant effects of the laws of attraction, right? The laws of attraction, the science behind attraction. So what's the science behind attraction? What's the science behind, you see somebody and you like the person, or somebody sees you and they like you, especially a male person sees you and they like you and they want to be close to you. What's the science behind it? So attraction is a complex phenomenon that involves multiple brain regions and hormones. So when somebody sees another person and finds that person attractive, their brain undergoes a complex set of reactions. And these reactions involve a combination of psychological and physiological responses. I'm not going to bore you with English, but what I'm trying to say in essence is, when someone sees you, or you see someone that you love or you like, first impression, you just like that person. The moment you see that person, something happens in your brain. There is a lot of chemical reactions and neurochemical reactions in your brain that happens, and they interact in order to send signals, to send a message. So as your eyes is seeing that person, your body is interpreting what is going on. Now, the first thing that happens, the first part of the brain that gets activated is the visual cortex. So the visual cortex allows you to form a specific picture in your brain that relates especially to a human face. So what that means is that when the visual cortex is activated at seeing somebody, your brain is able to pick the face of that person. That's why it's possible that you can see somebody for once in life, but because your brain has been activated, there is something that draws the person, that's attracted the person to you, or something that has attracted you to the person. Either way, the brain registers the picture of that person in your mind. And that's why it's possible that you might have seen someone just once, but you will be able to remember the picture of that person that you see. Okay? Now, so seeing someone attractive can lead to the release of various neurochemicals in the brain. And one of those chemicals is the dopamine. Now, the dopamine is the feel-good, hormone. It's a hormone in the body that it's associated with pleasure, reward, and motivation. You may say, why are we learning this? The reason we're learning this is because you need to understand what happens when you meet a man or when a man meets you. Something happens before ever there is a conversation. Something has, happened in the body. So we're talking about the science of attraction, and this thing happens both in the man and in the woman, but there is a little bit of differences which I would explain much later. So when you meet somebody, there is a hormone in the body called the dopamine. Is a feel-good hormone. Is the thing in your system that makes you feel good. And that's what activates you, that makes you say, oh, I like this person. There are certain things about that person that you find attractive. Now, your brain receives the signal that, oh, it's like the body, likes this person. Now, certain things begin to happen. It activates something called the reward system in the brain. Now, when that reward system is activated, it stimulates the desire for closeness, for physical touch, and even for sexual activity, leading to pleasure. So, when you meet somebody, the pleasure system is activated, the reward system is activated, the visual systems are activated. Now, this area of the brain these areas of the brain that are activated is what gives you the feeling of satisfaction, is what gives you the feeling of pleasure when something good happens. And when it is triggered, it causes an increase in the flow, in the flow of dopamine that creates a surge. So when you see somebody and you're attracted to that person, there is a surge for pleasure that is released in your brain. There is a surge for, feeling good, or a reward system, and that's what makes you want to go close to that person. Now, the brain's ability to judge how attractive another person is comes from an instinctive process called the embodied cognition. Now, this involves processing visual information about somebody's physical features and other contextual cues, such as their mood, and then it quickly scans for, facial symmetry, skin tone features like eyes, ears, hair, lips, and all these things influence how you find somebody attractive. So, on seeing somebody, your brain goes through a mechanism, and it's like a sort of a computer, a dictator. It's scanning. It scans through what the eyes is seeing, the facial features, the maybe the head, the hands, the all parts of the body. I'm going somewhere with this. Now, that is why when you see somebody and you find a person attractive, it's a natural feeling. Sometimes you are like, I don't even know, but I just like this person. There is something about that person that maybe your brain interpreted as looking good, interpreted as, oh, having pleasure. Your brain was able to feel a sense of pleasure, a sense of satisfaction just by seeing it. So you see a man tall, dark, and handsome. Your brain interprets that tall, dark, and handsome is something very good, very nice, very lovely, and is something desirable. So attraction can influence your mood. It makes you feel happier, or even more anxious. It can increase your adrenaline levels. All these chemical reactions that are going on, it can. So that's why you meet somebody, or every time that you see someone, whether you see them physically or you see their picture, your heart misses a skip. For some people, they start to sweat. For some people, they start to feel some sort of nervous because of what is going on. So this is what happens when a man sees a woman. As the brain is interpreting those things, adrenaline levels are rising, the pleasure hormones are activated, the sexual hormones are activated. Now, the major difference between the male, so the male brain is different from the female brain. There's something I want to explain. A man is so different. The male and the female are two of God's finest creatures, right? But you must understand that the male and the female are two different entities. So different. So different. They are two different entities. The way the man's brain works is entirely different from the way a woman's brain works. If you don't understand this, you might find yourself in certain situations and you are saying, but what happened? I didn't do anything. That's because you didn't understand what happened. You didn't understand certain mechanisms. So the biggest difference between the male brain and the female brain is the fact that the male brain is bigger. There's a part of the male brain, the sexual pursuit area of the male brain is 2.5 times larger than the one in the female brain. The sexual pursuit area of the male brain is 2.5 times larger than the one in the female brain. So as the male grows up, the body from between adolescence and childhood, there is sort of a double multiplication of testosterone. So testosterone is the sexual hormone in a man, and some of it in a woman as well. Now, by the time a boy is a teenager, the sexual hormones has been multiplied double times what it was when he was a boy, when he was a child. So you can imagine Now, I'll give this illustration. So, if testosterone was a sort of a drink, let's say a sort of a can of whatever drink, yeah, in a 9-year-old, a testosterone will be the equivalent of maybe a cup of drink, or let's say water, a cup of water, right? In a 9-year-old boy. Now, by the time that boy is 15, his body is producing as much as 2 gallons of that hormone. Now, imagine by the time he's 20, imagine by the time he's 25. So his body is continuously producing a lot of sexual hormones, and by reason of what he sees now, the man's power, the man's energy is sexual energy is activated through the eyes. When a man sees a woman, certain mechanisms is like 1,001 things happening at the same time. It's a biological phenomenon. It's not something spiritual. So a man's body, a man's receptors, sexual receptors, starts from the eyes by what he sees, which is why when a man sees you, there could be several reactions. Some people exclaim, some people start to come close to you. They want to know what more about you. What is this? Who are you? And all of that. And then there are several hormones that, drive a man's sexual desire. We've talked about the dopamine, there is oxytocin, there is there is testosterone, there is serotonin, there is vasopressin. We're not here to do science, but I'm trying to make you understand why certain things happen. Now, as a woman, you need to understand that a man is different. And what that means is that you have to relate with that understanding that a man is different. That even without doing anything, a man's sexual energy can be activated just by the sight of you. Now, how you manage what you see or what happens, how you manage it can either increase or reduce whatever happens thereafter. How you react can influence how that person responds to you, whether it can cause things to blow out of proportion, or it can reduce the activity. Now, I am not trying to put the blame of a man's misbehavior on a woman. No, that's not the point. The point is to make you understand that there are certain things that you can help with knowledge. There are certain things you can avoid with knowledge. Now, let's talk about, buckles. So we were talking about when buckles turn to shackles. What are buckles? What are buckles? So societal structure demands that there will be interdependence, exchange of communication between men and women. Many times this situation starts out as meeting a total stranger who gradually becomes an acquaintance. It can evolve into friendship and sometimes go as far as marriage. But before a relationship gets to the marriage phase, it must pass certain tests. It must pass the test of authenticity, the test of legality, and the test of worthiness. Now, when a relationship between a man and a woman who are not married, or a woman who is married and a man who is not married, or a man and woman who is both married, whichever way. But when a relationship between a man and a woman takes a form that contradicts the part of a legitimate, socially acceptable, culturally permitted form or ethics of a relationship, and that relationship becomes questionable, then that relationship potentially has the evidences of a shackles, the characteristics of a shackles. So what is a buckle? Now, a buckle is a kind of an instrument. It's usually like a clasp that is used to hold two things together. It's symbolic in our context. So buckles imply friendships or interactions between a man and a woman that allow for mutual respect, where communications overlap each other in a formal, non-abusive manner. I will repeat that. Buckles imply friendships or interactions between a man and a woman that allows for mutual respect, where communications overlap each other in a formal, non-abusive, non-violating manner. So, a buckle represents a connection or joining of two things in such a manner that both items are secured without harming each other. So when a relationship between a man and a woman is such that the interaction between them does not harm each other, then that relationship is qualified as a buckle. There is the overlapping, there is the dependence, there is the interaction, but it is not harmful. When a relationship between a man and a woman is not harmful, then that's a buckle. So a relationship between a man and a woman is like the two parts of a buckle. They are different, but they are overlapping and they are secure. It's not harmful. It's not causing injury. And this implies that the bond, the connection present in the friendship between the individual, involves that of trust, involves that of transparency, and, mutual respect. So, knowing that friendship between the opposite gender takes a different form requires that there has to be some elements of carefulness. There has to be some elements of, caution, and, like we said, purpose around it. If you're following me, please write in the comment section so that I know that you're following me. Thank you. Now, just because two people weren't initially attracted to each other doesn't mean that it won't develop over time. Just because when both of you became friends, you were talking, it does not mean that feelings will not develop over time. It would happen at some point. It would happen at some point. Now, let's talk about what the characteristics of a shackled relationship. Now, when you say a relationship is shackles, or is in shackles, or is a shackled relationship, what are we talking about? A relationship is shackled when the activities the communication, the interaction that happens within the confines of that relationship lacks respect, lacks security, and lacks any advantage. So when the interactions, the communications that exist in an existing relationship between a man and a woman lacks mutual respect, lacks security, lacks accountability, lacks boundaries, lacks advantage, then that relationship is a shackled relationship. Now, there are other things that happen when a relationship is a shackled relationship, and that's what we're going to be talking about now. Number one is undue closeness. Now, believe it or not, there are certain levels, there are certain ambits of closeness between a man and a woman that are not married that become questionable. In marriage, closeness is unrestricted. But for as long as you remain unmarried, or you are with somebody that you are not married to, there are certain levels of closeness that become questionable. Now, when someone becomes so close that they are touching you in inappropriate ways, you are having inappropriate conversations that should happen between a married man and a married woman, or maybe people who are planning to get married. You are having such conversations. Then there is physical closeness, there is the touch, there is the the physical interactions that makes people ask question, what's going on? If your interaction with a man that you're not legally engaged to or married to begins to raise questions, then that's a shackled relationship. So number one is undue closeness. Number two is a lack of respect. Lack of respect. When a relationship between you and a man lacks respect, the person does not take the cognizance of the fact that you are a woman and you deserve to be respected. You deserve to be spoken to with some sort of regard. Then that's a shackled relationship. Calling you some endearing names, calling you pet name, is actually a dishonor. And some people go as far as using very obscure words to address people that they are not married to. No, your spouse is the person who is supposed to, call you a special name. It's a special name reserved for you and your spouse. It's supposed to be something sacred. Now, when somebody who is not your husband, who has not indicated marriage, or maybe has indicated marriage but has not gone through the right processes, is beginning to use such endearing names, then there is a problem. There is a lack of respect for you. It means that the person is treating you like, like somebody that has no value. They are calling you babe, and they are not married to you. Why? Like, why? Why will you be calling me babe when I am not your wife? We are not married. Why? We are not planning to. It's lack of respect. The person does not respect you enough to see that you have honor. They don't respect you enough to see your value. They see you as someone that has no worth. They have no value. They have no sense of regard for your person. That's the truth. So there is that lack of respect. They touch you anyhow. They just throw words at you. They invade your space. They invade your space. Now, let me talk about space at this point. So every person has at least 4 personal spaces that they should protect. If you're following me, can you tell me in the comment section? Every person has 4 personal spaces that they should be protecting. Number 1, your physical space. Your physical space has to do with your physical distance. So there is actually a sitting or standing distance that exists between 2 people. Nature made it that way, that there should be that natural distance between 2 people who are not connected in any way. Even in relationship, even in sibling relationship, even in parent-child relationship, sometimes there could be, that distance. Please, if your video is on, you can turn it off. Thank you. There could be that distance, right? So, physical distance includes sitting distance. There's a way someone sits very close to you and it makes you uncomfortable. And you turn to the person and you're like, are you okay? Is everything all right? So when someone invades your space and just sits very close to you and they're just rubbing you, that's the invasion of your physical space. Invasion of physical space includes your body, the way you're being touched. You can't touch me anyhow. It's my body, for crying out loud. You can't just come and touch. You can't just come and hug me. No, you can't just come and hug me. It's my body. It's not your property. It could be your environment, maybe your house. Someone just shows up in your house unannounced, or just barges into your house, or just, that's an invasion of your space, your physical space. And you must know that if you are allowing those things to happen, then you're setting yourself up. You can't allow a man that you're not married to be coming to your house every now and again if you're living alone. Why? Why? Then tomorrow something goes wrong and you blame, you cry foul. You open the doors. You allowed your physical space to be invaded. You allow yourself to be touched anyhow, to be hugged anyhow, your body to be played with. Then the day that the person starts to ask for sex, you get angry. You have been permissive all along. You've given permission. If you're allowing someone to touch you unnecessarily, then you are giving permission. And that means on the day that the person will want to do certain things, you can't say no. It will be difficult. Then the second one is your emotional space. Your emotional space means that your mind, your mental, strength, your core, the depths of, your mind is being played with. It should be protected. Your emotional space should be protected. How you feel, And someone is telling you that, oh, when I hear your voice, it makes me feel somehow, and saying certain things to arouse your emotions. That's your emotional space being invaded. So they're sending you messages, they're saying things that, that causes you to, to start feeling emotional. That's your emotions being invaded. They're saying things and they're being manipulative. Oh, they're complimenting you. Yes, you're beautiful. You're telling me, is it that I don't know? I do know. But then you're saying it in such a way to trigger something in somebody. Oh, you're beautiful. Your eyes, they're describing your eyes, describing your ear, describing. Why didn't I don't I know that I'm beautiful? Don't I know that god God made me beautiful? I already know that. You don't need to give me the details, right? So that's your emotional space. It should be protected. You should be assertive about who should come in there or who should not. Then your psychological space, the space where you think, where you process information, where you process your thoughts, where you have mental clarity, it should be maintained, it should be protected. There are people that use threats. They use threats to invade somebody's, psychological space. And, somebody is saying, without me, you wouldn't have been anything. And they're talking down on you, they're intimidating you, or maybe they know something about you, they're using against you. Oh, I have your pictures. If you don't agree to this, I'm going to put it out there. They are literally trying to blackmail you. That's an invasion of your psychological space, because it starts to work on your mind. And then you feel the pressure to give into that relationship, not because it is something to be considered, but because of fear. That person is creating fear in your mind. Then there is also your spiritual space. Your spiritual space should be protected. Now, when all of this starts to happen, it also starts to affect your spiritual space. And maybe you're trying to do the right thing. You're trying to, not engage in acts that are sinful. And this person starts to water down on your belief system, water down on your convictions, water down on the things that you know are wrong. And they're telling you there is nothing wrong in it. Everybody is doing it. And when there is an invasion of your spiritual space, it's not just your belief system that is being attacked, it's your spirituality. Because you start to interact with this person and you find out that you don't have boldness before the throne. You're not able to come to the presence of God again. There is that feeling of guilt, that feeling of shame. So when you're interacting with someone and you start to feel shame, you start to feel guilt, you start to feel like you're not able to come to the presence of God, then there is a problem. There is a problem. It's a shackled relationship. It's wanting to entangle you. So we go back to the characteristics of a shackled relationship. The characteristics of a shackled relationship: number 3, we've talked about undue closeness, we've talked about lack of respect. Then there is obsession. So there are situations where you find that somebody is obsessed. There is that extreme, uncontrollable emotional behavior. And someone is saying to you, I can't eat, I can't sleep. If I don't talk to you, I can't read my books. Nothing can happen. It's like their life is basically dependent on you. It's like they're depending on you for survival. You are now under the pressure to service the relationship so that the person can survive. That is a shackled relationship. That's a sort of bondage, because it means that you don't have yourself to you. It means that you will need to be to service someone else, your relationship with that person, for that person to survive and for you to have your sanity. In a day, the person will send you like 1,000 messages. Every minute they are messaging. Every second they are sending pictures. That is a shackled relationship. Then there is extreme emotional bond. Extreme emotional bond. What I call soul ties. Soul ties. Now, the concept of soul ties is so, you know, is something that is so very concerning. So soul ties is when you are bonded so much with a person who you are not connected to by reason of marriage or a relationship leading to marriage. You are so much bonded with that person that it feels like you are married to that person. That's actually what soul tie means. Soul ties is when you find yourself so connected to somebody, to an opposite sex, in such a way that you feel like you are married to them. You're doing everything that married people do. You call in the morning, afternoon, and night. You exchange, information. You discuss things that married people discuss. Then you are bonded with that person. Your soul is tied to that person. And as far as the spiritual realm is concerned, you are married to that person. The scripture says, shall two walk together except they agree? The moment you start to communicate with somebody in such a way that the two of you are now working together, are now doing things together, are now living like husband and wife, even though you may not be living in the same house. For some people, they are cohabiting. Then that's soul ties. And when you, in a day when you don't talk to this person, it's like your life is threatened. Something is wrong. Something is missing. If you get to the point where there is a man that is not your husband, that is not your fiancé, he's not engaged you, nothing legal or legitimate has happened between the both of you, and you find that you don't have peace, you find that you cannot survive without this person, you are married to that person. You have already married that person. In the spiritual realm, that person is your husband. You don't need to go to the altar. You don't need to go to the altar. That interaction that allows that person to have access to your heart, to have access to your mind, is something that can shake, can change your spiritual positioning. How do you connect with people? How do you connect with people? Communication. So the more you communicate with somebody, the more you bond with them. The more there is a transfer of spirits. There is a transfer of habits. There is a transfer of thought process. There is a transfer of ideas. There is an exchange of ideas. There is an exchange of mindsets. Gradually, you start to hear yourself sound like the person. You lie down and sleep, you dream about the person. You wake up, you're thinking about the person. My dear, you are in a shackled relationship. And if you do not do something about that relationship, marriage cannot solve it. Marriage does not free a person from a shackled relationship. Instead, it complicates it. When you have somebody that you bonded with, someone that you once had a close-knit relationship with, very intimate relationship with, at some point in your life, and you did not break away from that relationship in the appropriate manner, in your marriage, that relationship becomes a threat. In your marriage, that relationship becomes a threat. So an unresolved intimate relationship with somebody that you are not married to, with an ex, becomes a threat in your marriage. Because in the realm of the spirit, you are thinking that you're married to somebody. In the spirit, you are married to as many people that your soul have bonded with. So if it is one person, if it is 4 people, if it is 5 people, you are still connected to them. So while physically you might be married to one, in the spiritual, you have 5 husbands. That was what happened to the Samaritan woman who Jesus met at the well. Jesus said to her, "You have had 5 husbands." I didn't think that she was legally married to them. She may have, but Jesus was saying to her, your soul is connected to 5 different souls. And even the person you are connected to now is not your husband. So you have distributed your spirit to several people. So soul ties is a distribution of your spirit to several people who you are not legitimately married to. Now, the next characteristics of a shackled relationship is digital intimacy. So we're talking about things that when they happen, things that when they are prevalent, you can say this relationship is a shackled relationship. Digital intimacy, unfortunately, is one of the most destructive factors in our present generation. Sometimes you've never met someone, you've never had you've never even heard their voice, you don't know what they look like, but you are communicating with them online. Maybe you exchange numbers, you are constantly sharing pictures, you are constantly chatting with them, discussing sex or having sexual conversations with people that you do not know, or people that maybe you know, but that is online, sexting, and they're asking you to send your pictures. They're asking you to do certain things, certain immoral things. They are saying things that instigate you sexually, that arouse you. They are sending you voice notes, or you are even sending. So it's a two-way thing. It could be them sending, it could be you sending. You are sending voice notes with bedroom voice, sexy voice, and you are talking, with such seductive tones. And you know that you yourself, you know what you're doing. You know that that thing you're saying with a seductive tone is with an intention. My dear, you are in a shackled relationship. You are in bondage. You are in a shackled relationship. Now, there is something that happens when people talk at night. You know, midnight calls. I don't know if it's still a thing now, but I remember when midnight calls started. So to start normally from 12 a.m. or 11:30:59 to maybe 5 a.m. in the morning, right? Where you have access to talk for long hours for free. For free. Now, that is an agenda from the pit of hell. It comes like a wolf. It comes like things that we are designed to help people communicate more. Now, this happen. Have you ever wondered why these were put at odd hours? At odd hours, very odd hours, out of our system. Because there is something that happens in the night season. Now, there's something we call biorhythm. So biorhythm or circadian rhythm is what regulates the way that your body acts during the day and during the night. So it's a body mechanism that allows your body to be active in the day, and in the night you feel a bit more drowsy, you tend to want to go to sleep and all of that, right? Now, biorhythm makes for your biological clock, your biological system activates you in the morning when there is light. You are active, you wake up, you do certain things, and then when it starts getting to night, your body interprets it that it's getting dark. It's time to go to rest. It's time to sleep, and you start feeling sleepy. Now, at those hours of the day, the body is made to feel that it is a time to rest. It's a time for relaxation. So you are not meant to be doing maybe very serious work in that time. That's why they're called out of hours. From the evening time till midnight. Now, when this happens, at those certain hours of the night, your body is supposed to be resting. And it also affects the way that your hormones respond as well. So your hormones will be very low, your body becomes weak, and that also means that your capacity to be more rational could be reduced. It could be reduced because your body is weak, is entering into relaxation mode. Now, this is a sensitive time for both worlds, both the world of light and the world of darkness, those hours of the night. Now, the midnight hour, the midnight mark, is a time that when spiritual activities are on a high, an ultimum high. The midnight hours is when spiritual activities are on a ultimate high. That's why your body feels weak, and then your spirit is more active at that time. Which is why you dream, which is why you see things, which is why that's the period that God, gives you dream, because that's when your spirit is more active. That's when God is able to show you something. Now, if at that time when your body is weak and there is high spiritual traffic in that season during the night, and it matters what you do with that time. Now, if during the time of high spiritual traffic, the demons are activated, spirits are activated, That's why those who do vigil in the night, because of the same reason. If during that time you are awake and talking, engaging in romantic talk, sexual talks, you are setting yourself up for trouble, because certain things are moving in the airwaves and they can quickly pass into your spirit by the things that you're hearing. That's why that's the period that certain people get into pornography, get into masturbation, because it's not just about them. First of all, their body is already weak, their mind is already weak, their spiritual sensitivities are already, reduced. Their hormones, certain hormones have been activated. And then there is also additionally the spiritual activity, negative activities that are going on. Spirits are moving around looking for who to invade. It is very easy for strange spirits to enter into such people. That's how people get into pornography. That's how people get into masturbation. That's how people become sexually addicted. So the question is, what are you doing with your nighttime? Who are you talking to? By 12 a.m., by 1 a.m., by 3 a.m. Do you know that 3 a.m. is the peak of the night season? The peak of the night season. The spiritual wall of partition between the spiritual realm and the physical realm is the thinnest at 3 a.m. That was why about that time, when you read the scriptures, you see that Jesus woke up and went to go and pray, went to go and commune with his Father, because that was the season that the airwaves were open. The spiritual system was so free. The communication lines were so free. The frequency was so sharp. So sharp. So imagine that time, you are awake, talking irrelevant things, activating things that should not be activated, servicing spirits that should not be serviced. Now, there are spirits responsible for immorality. There are spirits responsible for certain sexual addictions. It will be so easy for them to invade a person at that time of the night. So you must put the boundaries. You must say to yourself, from so time, I don't pick a man's call. If you are not my husband or my father, then don't call me by that time. It's your boundary. It's part of protecting your emotional space. The next one, we've talked about a lot of them. Pornography. So these are characteristics of shackled relationships. They introduce you to pornography. Some people didn't know what pornography was until they started talking to one man. They started talking to one bro. They started talking to somebody somewhere. And the person started sending them pictures, nudes. And that's how they got into masturbation. That's how they got into pornography. Exposure to sexually sexually arousing content. Now, another characteristic is distractions. Distractions is one of the biggest struggles of a woman. Distractions. Now, when a relationship becomes distractive, it starts to make it, you start to lose concentration. You are in class and you can't concentrate. You are at work and you can't concentrate. This person is always coming into your mind. Then there is a problem. Then there is incarceration. So detachment, social detachment, isolation, a relationship that puts you in a situation where you separate yourself from other people, where you now find it difficult to interact with the people that you once cared about, where you find yourself avoiding certain people, maybe avoiding friends because you don't want them to know what's going on. You are becoming very hideous. You are hiding, or this person is not even allowing you to have, friends, even be friends with other people. It's separating you. It makes you exclusive. You're always hiding because you want to do something. You want to make a call with that person. You want to have a private chat. You want to do all those things are characteristics of a shackled relationship. It's putting you in bondage. Secrecy. Then there is the manipulation. Every time you want to come out of the relationship, the person starts to cry. The person starts to say, oh, if you leave me, I'll die. Oh, I cannot survive without you. Oh, I don't know how to do with this. Oh, you are all my life. Oh, you are everything to me. Then that is a shackled relationship. Then there is the guilt. There is the domineering, the controlling. The person is wanting to control your life, wanting to have a say in everything that you do, wanting to know everything about you when they don't have the legal right. That is the evidence of a shackled relationship. When it gets deeper, then there is sexual intimacy. There could even be sexual violence. There could be rape, all manner of manipulation, abuse, sexual abuse, spiritual abuse. Some people have entered into relationship and the relationship graduated to, it's no more just physical, but it's not even spiritual. So maybe even physically, they have not had sexual intimacy with this person, but every time they sleep, they dream and they have sexual intimacy with that person. Then that's a shackled relationship. Now, this relationship can be between anybody. It can be a friend, it can be a work colleague, it can be with a mentor. There is this thing of, mentors, spiritual fathers, spiritual father and spiritual daughters. And in the name of mentorship, you are being abused. You are being manipulated. Sometimes sexually harassed, sexually violated, even raped. And at this point, I want to say, please, if you are a woman, the appropriate person you should have as a mentor should potentially be your fellow woman. And there is a reason for that. The reason is because there are certain things that a woman would understand that a man wouldn't. And having, talked about the things we said earlier, how a man's body works, that a man is on the pulpit does not change the fact that he has blood running through his veins. Anointing does not it does not exclude somebody from having sexual urge. No. So he's a pastor, he's a minister of God, he can still fall for it. He can still have low moments. He can still have low moments where he's sexually aroused, and sometimes the people even have struggles. Maybe he was once into a relationship, he was once someone who was into all manner of lifestyle before he repented, before he got born again, and then he becomes a pastor, but he hasn't dealt with those things. It could be uncles. My uncle. So for so many people, his uncles, his father's friends, brothers' friends, that might have put them in such a tight situation. It could be a married person putting you under pressure, calling you and saying all manner of things, and you know this relationship is not going anywhere. We can't be friends. We can't be friends. We can't sustain this relationship. You're married. If a man is married, it doesn't matter if he's divorced or not. He's married means his life is committed somewhere already. His life is committed somewhere already. It's the hard truth. Except his wife is dead. But if he's a married man, then run. Today we find a lot of women who are wanting to sustain, they want to belong. They want to, for so many reasons, they are sustaining relationship. Maybe because of money. Maybe because they are seeking approval. You're in the midst of your fellow women, and then somebody comes to you and singles you out. You should be able to question that. It's not a time to start feeling like a princess. Being singled out in the midst of your fellow women for the purposes of negative attraction is not something to be proud of. You should be confident enough to question that move, because it's not about you. It's about every other person there. And if that person does not respect you, it means that equally they don't respect any other person, any other woman. If you're being catcalled, if you're being someone is sending sexual nuances to you, it can become a problem. It can become a problem. Now, let's talk about what's the way out. What's the way out from a shackled relationship? First of all, we've talked about understanding a man's thought process is important. One other most important thing is values. You need to have values. You need to have things that define you as a person. What are your principles? What are the things you stand for? Not just about what you were taught growing up. What do you stand for as a woman? What are your no-go areas? What are your limits? What are your boundaries? What are the things that you cannot do? How do you set those boundaries? Like I said, you can choose to say, at certain time, from certain time of the night, it doesn't matter what happens, I don't chat. I don't pick your calls. Whatever is important should be saved for the morning. And you establish it. I talked about protecting your personal space. So have values, have boundaries. Then you need confidence. A lot of us are timid. A lot of us are shy. Shyness is not a fruit of the spirit. Shyness is not a fruit of the spirit. You're coy. Somebody says something offensive about you, and then you instead of you to feel offended, you behave in a way that suggests that you are accepting what they are saying. You take a defensive style of presentation. You don't say anything, or you smile, or you show a sort of response that lowers your value. It lowers your value. When you act shy, it lowers your value. Especially if you're in a culture where being quiet and being reserved is being considered as the hallmark for being a good wife, a good woman. You can be quiet, you can be reserved, but that should not kill your confidence. Confidence is a skill. Confidence is something you need as a woman. Confidence scares away the simple-minded. Being assertive, it shows that you are not a novice. It shows that you are not a walkover. It shows that you are not cheap. It shows that you're not naive. And I didn't say being rude. There's a difference between being rude and being confident. Confidently means that you can politely say, I'm sorry. I don't like the way you addressed me. Please, can you call me by my name? That's being confident. I'm sorry, I don't appreciate the way you look at me. Please, can you stop it? Now, when a man comes close to you, you may not easily tell their intentions, right? When a man comes to you, you may not easily tell their intentions, why they are coming close. But sometimes, as a woman, you have that intuition. You can be sensitive enough to say, I think that this is what this person is wanting from me, and I'm not ready for it. And in that moment, you are able to tell that person off. You're able to quickly discourage whatever they have in mind for their coming. There are people that when they come up to you, they come up with that disposition to show. You can clearly see lust in their eyes, and you should be able to tell that person off to say, I don't appreciate the way you're looking at me. Please, can you stop that? Now, when that happens, when a person, is coming close to you, you might need some time to be able to figure out, what does this person want? And over time, if the person is not being definite, if the person is not saying, this is my reason, this being as purposeful, deliberate about why they want to be close with you, then you should take the front row. You should stand up to it and confront them. Ask them, excuse me, you've been calling me over and over. You've been messaging me too many times. Is there a problem? Is there something you want? Is there something you want to say? Is there something I need to know? But just keeping quiet and watching it spiral into a place where you find it difficult to withdraw is dangerous. It's dangerous. It can put you in a very tight corner. Now, many times when women hear marriage, the moment a man proposes marriage to you, something gets triggered in your mind. Marriage triggers something in the mind of a woman. And what's that? It triggers the mindset that, so I am now being considered a potential wife. So I can actually take care of a man. And that begins to set your mind in motion. That begins to unconsciously begins to activate certain things in your psychology, in your mindset. So because men know that sometimes when they ask a woman for friendship, for maybe or illicit friendship, she might turn it down. Now they play the marriage game. So you find a man, he's coming to you, you're being friends, and the next thing he's saying, he wants you to get married, he wants to marry you, you're the person he wants, blah 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 blah. That's fine. That's fine. But marriage has principles. Marriage has steps that need to be followed. Now, depending on the culture, depending on the society, depending on the rules of engagement where you are, there are certain ways that a marriage should be done, even culturally. If you're interested in marrying somebody, there are certain things to do. There are certain places to go. There are certain people to talk to. You need permission in order to marry someone. You don't just barge into their space and say you want to marry them. And then the next thing you start acting like husband and wife. That's wrong. So what do you do as a woman? You set the boundaries. If someone is proposing marriage to you, please ask them to do the right thing. Okay, they could go see your parents, or if it's to go see your pastor, whatever be the protocol, they should follow it. That way, that person understands that this person is a person of value. And if they are serious, they will take the very next steps. Now, you are able to tell how unserious a person is, a man is, when he refuses to do the right thing, when he refuses to follow the set rules or principles that guide the marriage of a particular place. You can tell that it wasn't really what he had other motives. He had other motives. So marriage should not be a trap for you. You shouldn't hear that someone is about to wants to marry you, and the next thing you let down your guard. You let loose. They ask you for your picture, you send. They ask you to snap in certain ways, do certain things, you respond. No. They are discussing sensitive, intimate matters with you, and you are playing along. That's wrong. Those things are only permissible when there has been a legitimate permission for it to take place. So, you do not get committed until you have permission. I say that again. You do not get committed into a relationship until you have permission, until the right things have been done, until you have the legitimate permission from your family, from your parents, from your whoever, to go ahead. When I say permission, I mean permission for you to now officially go into a courtship relationship or into an engagement. And for you, you do not give consent until you are sure. As a woman, you do not give consent for a relationship until you are sure. So if someone is coming to you, the question you should be asking is this the kind of person that I want to marry? Is this the person that I want to spend the rest of my life with? You should be asking those questions. Does this person meet the demand? Does this person meet the qualities? Do they meet the standards? So, how do you come out? If you are already in this sort of relationship, a shackled relationship, all of what we have just mentioned, then you need to find your way out. If you are in extreme cases where you can't help yourself, where you are unable to actually come out. For some people, you've tried. You say, I'm not going to communicate with this person again. And then you find that you keep going back. If you don't put the boundaries, you will keep going back to the relationship. So first of all, you need to You need to repent. You need to turn away. Now, the word repent comes from the Greek word metanoia. Metanoia means to turn away from the wrong path. So when we are saying repent, we're saying turn away from that path. Because there are dangers. There are dangers lurking on the way when you are involved in such a relationship. Depending on the severity, you might need to cut off that relationship. You might need to cut off the relationship. You will need to set limits. You will need to say, this cannot happen again. This has to stop. I can't continue this with you. And you put an end to it, and you are assertive about it. And you need a confidence to do that. You need to stand up for yourself and speak for yourself, because nobody will speak for you. In extreme cases, you might need to change an environment. So if you are under pressure, someone is pestering you, and it is possible for people who are in very dire cases of maybe rape or sexual abuse or harassment or assault, you might need to change your environment. Move away. Disconnect. Disconnect from the person. If it is within certain circles, you can report it to a higher authority. Say, if it's within a religious circle, you can report to a higher circles. Now, when it becomes a sort of a situation where you are a victim, for example, rape cases or consistent harassment, then you need evidence. Because if you just go out there and say it, nobody will believe you. You need evidence. Someone is consistently visiting you at odd hours or taking every little opportunity to abuse you. Bring out your phone, your camera. Asa, I'm going to record you. If you don't stop, you must have evidence, because you must prove that actually this is happening. And it is self-protective. It is self-protective. If you live alone, then you have no business a man visiting you alone. Finally, what are the dangers of a shackled relationship? What are the dangers of a shackled relationship? Number one, heartbreak, aka breakfast. They serve you breakfast because those people, you engage in all of that with them. You waste your emotions on somebody. You waste your lifetime. Like I said, your time is your life. You waste your time and life in a relationship. At the end of the day, they go and marry someone else. Then you're heartbroken. Then you feel you have invested your emotions in the wrong place, in the wrong places. Number two, there is regret. There's regret. You wish you didn't do this. You wish you didn't sell out yourself. You wish for some people, when it metamorphoses into more complicated issues, people get pregnant or get disease or some other more, conflicting situations. They are full of regrets. They're full of regrets. Then we talked about soul ties, spiritual bondage. Spiritual bondage, it opens the door for you to be susceptible to strange spirits, the spirit of immorality, and all the things that come with it. Sexual molestation in the dream. I've had people have to experience sexual molestation in the dream just because they started doing certain things with certain people. They started talking to somebody and their doors were opened. Your heart is a gateway. Your heart is a gateway. Be careful who you let in there. Your heart is a gateway. Be careful who you let in. Who you let into your soul. Who you let into your emotions. The Bible says that he that is one with an adulteress is one body with her. and vice versa. Sex is a spiritual thing. If you sleep with somebody, it's not just sex that happen. It's an exchange, it's a covenant. And therefore, you must preserve your body, your soul, and your spirit for the right person. Now, there is the danger of haunted future. A haunted future is tomorrow you are afraid because something happened in your past and then it's resurfacing in your future. And sometimes you've gotten married and you didn't disclose those things and they become a problem in your marriage. So you must disclose those things. You must disclose them. There is irreversible mistakes. Yes, some people make mistakes and it's irreversible. If you marry somebody, you enter into a relationship with somebody and then you get pregnant out of it, it's an irreversible mistake. You might have aborted the baby, but it was an irreversible. You've gotten pregnant means you've gotten pregnant. You've caught a sexually transmitted disease. Sometimes it can be irreversible. Then there is the guilt, there is the shame, there is the disgrace. Please, any relationship where you are always feeling guilty, you're feeling shame, you're feeling disgrace, you're feeling like you're doing something wrong, you're not bold to talk about it. Any relationship you are not bold to talk about is a potentially hazardous relationship. Any relationship you are not bold to talk about is a potentially hazardous relationship. Then there is the loss of value. There is a loss of dignity and self-worth. This person has, you've let out your whole life secret to them. You've exposed everything about you to them. And then they have all the information about you, vital information about you. They know certain things that they shouldn't have known. Then you lose your value. Tomorrow they see you, they wash you down, they look down on you. And if they marry someone else, they may go about spreading news about you. You don't want that. Then there is also the danger of unnecessary comparison in marriage. Marriage is meant to be a sacred experience that you have with just one person. That's the way it was designed. If you have it with someone else, I'll have it with a couple of people, it becomes a problem. Because in marriage, you start to compare that person you're married to with all your past experiences. And that can scatter the home. You don't want that. You don't want that. So, today, as we round up this session, what kind of relationship are you running? Are you into? As I speak, that relationship with that young man, what purpose is he serving? If he's not your fiancé, if he's not your husband, if he's not your father, if he's not your brother, even if it's your brother, but the relationship has deteriorated into something else, your cousin, it has entered into a negative relationship, then it has to end. Otherwise, you become shackled. You are being taken in a chokehold. So, today, decide that my relationship with a man until marriage will remain a buckle where it is with mutual respect, dignity, value, and harmless. I will feel secure, and if I don't, I check out. If I don't feel valued, if I don't feel honored and respected, I check out. I check out. So that's the end of the class. From buckles to shackles. Which one is your situation? Are you buckled or are you shackled? If you are buckled, well done. Or if you're shackled, find your way out and run. Thank you so much for attending the class. I hope that you have learned a lot. Please share your insights, share your